A broad-based rally on Wall Street sees indices enjoy their best day in months as Treasury yields retreat and investors get optimistic that the Fed could be done hiking rates in the cycle. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific open higher on a strong handover from Wall Street. The GIFT Nifty, too, is indicating a higher start for the Indian market. Crude oil breaks a three-day losing streak. Prices rise over 2.5% on renewed risk appetite as the Fed hints that it could be done with hiking rates in this cycle. Brent currently trades around $87 a barrel. Tata Motors delivers a very strong second quarter backed by robust margin performance from the Jaguar Land Rover business. The company has also raised the Jaguar Land Rover business EBIT margin guidance to 8% from 6% earlier. In big earnings to track today, jewelry retailer Titan will report second quarter numbers where margin could weaken on competitive intensity. Commentary on festive demand will be the key. The Supreme Court reserves its judgment in the electoral bond case. The government responds in Supreme Court selective anonymity charge assures that the finance secretary cannot call the SBI for donor details. The court observes that electoral bonds shouldn't end up legitimizing kickbacks and become a channel of quid pro quo. Good morning in the Mumbai News Center. I'm Sonal Bhutra. You're watching Power Breakfast. It's last day of the trading week. We have a lot to catch up on, especially what's happening in the global markets. So first up, let's take a look at what the Asian markets are doing right now. It's been a strong handover that we got from the Wall Street, and that is something which is reflecting in the Asian markets as well. So we do have the Hang Seng markets, which are up 200 points as we speak. The Taiwanese index is up 65. And across the board, actually, if we look at most of the Asian indices, they are higher in trade. Something like a Kospi 2 is higher by 1%. So looking good for the Asian market. Some of them are shut for a holiday, but apart from that, the ones which are open are doing really well, and it is really the economic data that the street is awaiting, and that is something which is propelling the stocks higher as well. Across the region, we do have data in terms of health of services activity through some of the indices that are through some of the data that's coming out, and a purchasing manager index from major economies is also expected today. The GIFT Nifty, that'll come up for you on the screen, and that one is indicating an implied open which is in the green again, 112 points higher on the GIFT Nifty currently. That's the implied open that this one is suggesting right now, and could be another good day for our own markets as well. So that's what's happening in the Asian markets. But let's talk about the U.S. markets now. Wall Street ended Thursday's trading session with gains. The Dow finished 565 points higher, while the S&P 500 was up around 2%. The tech-heavy index, the Nasdaq, also climbed by 232 points. Apple reported its fourth quarter earnings after market hours yesterday. The sales and earnings per share beat analyst expectations. However, overall sales fell for a fourth quarter in a row. The management has guided that the company may not return to growth in the next quarter. In their conference call, the CEO, Tim Cook, also said that they hit quarterly records in many markets, including an all-time revenue record in India. Meanwhile, a jury has found FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried guilty of all 7 criminal fraud counts against him, and he could now face a maximum of 115 years in prison. Okay, let's stay with the U.S. markets then and listen into Roger Ferguson, who's the former Fed Vice Chair, and JP Morgan's Gabriela Santos as they react to the Fed's policy decision and Chair Powell's comments.
He was very much on script. And I think he was very honest as well, which is they are undecided about the next move, whether or not there will be one, because indeed, things are looking good, but has not yet achieved the goal. I think he wants to be very, very clear that the goal remains the goal, and consequently, they're not ready to say they're done. He was very, very explicit and clear that they're looking at the data overall. So yes, CPI, PCE, labor market, they're still very interested in. Obviously, inflation expectations. So there are a number of factors that we all have to think about, or that they will be thinking about, and no one should get overly fixated on just one piece of information that comes in.
What the Fed chair officially communicated was that they're still in a hawkish state of mind. But I do think the market is right to interpret several dovish signals that he sent as a sign to reduce expectations for another rate hike and to increase then the probability that the Fed is really done raising. We hope they're done, and we do think the odds have risen since yesterday that they're done. And that's because of several things he said. Chair Powell mentioned third quarter's very, very elevated growth, but mentioned that forecasts are for that growth to slow down. He also cited several improvements in the supply side of the economy, be it the jobs market, be it productivity that we got this morning. That means that resilient growth doesn't have to mean inflation pressure.
Okay, it's time to get you the final update in our global market wrap this morning. European markets rallied on Thursday. The French CAC and the German DAX surged over 1.5%. And the British FTSE closed with gains of over 100 points. The Pan-European Stock 600 and 1.6% higher, led by auto and tech stocks. In other important cues from the region, the Bank of England left rates unchanged but said that monetary policy will likely need to stay tight for an extended period of time. Okay, all right, that's the global market action, but how will these overnight cues impact our own markets? We have our research team joining in with what the trade setup looks like, the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and the action from the F&O space as well. Good morning, guys, and a very happy Friday to both of you. Rima, let me come to you first up. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, it's looking pretty good, right? It's more than a 100-point rally on the GIFT Nifty. Yesterday as well, the markets clocked in a solid rally, closing above 19,100, 19,133. Not quite at the opening highs, because the Nifty had hit an intraday high of 19,175. So from that level, the Nifty was off close to about 40-odd points, but it was still a very good session. And today we're going to build on that. Now, once we get that 100, 130, 140-point rally, it will get us very close to the resistance level. The market resistance level, according to analysts, is seen around 19,250, 19,300. So once that, once we get to that cluster zone, is it possible for us to break out and move higher? That remains to be seen. The global markets were solid. Traders believe that we are closer to the end of the rate hiking cycle. The US 10-year yield has slipped 27 basis points over the past two trading sessions since the Jerome Powell commentary. So we were closer to 4.9%, and now we're down to 4.66%. The global attention is going to be on the October jobs data out later today, and back home it's going to be on earnings from the likes of Titan. That's the only Nifty company, but outside of that, important ones from IDFC, Escorts, MRF and others. In terms of flows, the FIs net sold 1,261 crore, while the DIIs net bought 1,380 crore in the cash market. Back to you.
Okay, all right, so that's the market setup, but a lot of stocks that'll be in focus on the back of earnings and other news flow. Surbhi has that list. Hey, Surbhi, morning.
Good morning. So first one is Tata Motors, really strong earnings, revenue up 32%, EBITDA at 13,767 crores, margins at 13.1% versus a poll of 12.8%. More importantly, the company has raised guidance for their JLR EBIT margins in FY24. Gujarat Gas, it was a margin-led beat. Revenues up nearly 2%, EBITDA up 28%, margins at 13% versus 10.3% in the previous quarter. Concor, the higher realizations has aided the performance this quarter. Revenue up 10.5%, EBITDA up 7.8%. JK Lakshmi Cement, the revenue was up nearly 12%, sales volume up 10% and EBITDA up 29%. Sapphire Foods, it was a double-digit revenue and EBITDA growth, revenue up 14.2%, EBITDA up 12% on a year-on-year basis. IEX, steady quarter, strong operating performance over there, revenue up 14%, EBITDA up nearly 17% and margins at 85% on a year-on-year basis. Apart from that, an update on the Mamaearth IPO, the total subscription is 7.6 times, where retail subscription is 1.4 times. We'll also be watching out for Titan. They'll be declaring their results today, and we have SBI and Bank of Baroda tomorrow.
Okay, those are the big numbers, of course. Thank you so much, Surbhi, for joining us with that list. But a lot of action in the F&O space as well. Nigel is joining us now. Hey, Nigel, morning.
Well, morning, Sonali. Yesterday, we highlighted 19,170 will be the resistance zone. We went to 19,175 in the first hour, and from there, we did a U-turn. Now, today, the bulls will be feeling good. They'll want to give it another dash. So, yesterday, actually, the Nifty intraday saw a bit of a dip, but it ended closer to around the high point of the day. So, I like that. Overnight, the yields have cooled off, which is equity market positive, and the Indian markets as well will take note of that. What did the FIs do, though? They added more shorts than longs yet again. So they added close to 20,000 short positions in yesterday's trading session. The short positioning goes to around 84%. And if we're looking at it in absolute terms, when we started the series, we were saying, well, the FIs aggressively net short in absolute terms. It was more than 1.5 lakh contracts. Now that number has gone to around 1.75 lakh contracts. So they continue shorting in absolute terms. That's the highest that we've seen all the way since March 2023. On the options side, well, the 19,100 put, that was fairly active in trade yesterday. The premium came down from around 100 rupees to around 71 rupees odd. So there is writing being seen on that level. But the 19,200 call, now that's very, very important because, yesterday we saw some writing of them. Close to around 20 lakh shares were added at that particular strike. The resistance zone will be around that 19,250 to 19,300 because on the call side, 19,200 has the highest open interest. Those are the levels that come up for you. That's the resistance zone. The recent high that we saw a few days ago, 19,233. Well, you'll want to get past that mark, which is very, very important. And on the downside, the sense you get is maybe 18,800 is what we're talking about. But maybe that base is trying to move up a little bit. And going by the options data, 19,000 is the mark that you should be looking at. The Nifty Bank, that's going to be the very, very important one that was doing a bit of an underperformance a few sessions ago. Now it's very close to the 200 DMA. It's close to around 150 points away. You wanted to get past that technical resistance zone and then make its way to around 28 DMA. And tomorrow, we've got the big Q. SBI will be coming out with its set of numbers. Let's see how that one goes. But for the second half of trade, I think you look at SBI, look at the PSU banking index, and hope that the Nifty Bank moves to around that 200 DMA. If that's the case, the shots in the system will have to run for cover. Back to you.
Okay, all right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us and hope all of you have a great Friday. With that, we'll slip into a break. When we return, Tata Motors reported second quarter earnings post-market hours yesterday. We'll get you the highlights and the analysis on the other side. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast, and as promised, some important earnings that we'll be tracking now. Tata Motors reported a strong set of second quarter earnings. Sonia is here with us with the highlights. Sonia, tell us more.
Well, thanks a lot for that. As you rightly pointed out, very strong set of numbers coming in from Tata Motors. So I'm expecting the stock to open in the green today. The important bit is that the Jaguar Land Rover margins were very strong this time around. The JLR margins actually went up 430 basis points on a year-on-year basis, coming in at 14.9% versus 10.6% year-on-year. And if you look at just the EBIT margin, which is on your screen as well, the EBIT margin has improved to 7.3% versus 1% year-on-year. But here's the best part. The company has gone ahead and raised their margin guidance. The FY24 EBIT margin guidance has been raised to 8% versus 6% earlier. And the company also continues to expect a free cash flow of over £2 billion in FY24. Their net debt is expected to reduce to less than £1 billion by the end of FY24 as well. So a lot of positives coming through. If you look at the core numbers, very strong growth on the top line. The consolidated revenues have gone up 32% for Tata Motors, coming in at 1.05 lakh crores. The margins, consolidated margins, improved to 13% versus 7% earlier. And the net profits, it's a big profit of 3,764 crores versus a loss of 945 crores same time last year. Even if you look at just the JLR business, it's a growth of 30% on the top line. And the EBIT margins, as I said, have come in at 14.6% versus 10.6% earlier. So very strong numbers. Most brokerages are positive on the stock.
Okay, good numbers coming in from Tata Motors. Thank you so much, Sonia, for that analysis. With that, we'll move on and slip into a break. When we come back, we'll get you all the cues from the commodities market. Stay tuned for that. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast. Let's now talk about the latest in the war between Israel and Hamas. The Israeli military has completed the encirclement of Gaza City, the focal point of Hamas and its operation. Prime Minister Netanyahu, in a statement, said that they are at the height of the battle and are advancing. Meanwhile, Hezbollah and Israel have been exchanging fire over the last few hours in the Lebanese-Israeli border ahead of Hezbollah chief Nasrallah's address later today. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is expected to arrive in Israel today and meet the Prime Minister of Israel. He will later head on to Jordan to hold talks with the Jordanian king over developments in Gaza. Okay, with that, we'll move on when we'll talk about everything that's happening in the commodity space. Manisha Gupta is joining us now. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Morning, Sonal. Thank you for that. Well, I'll start with the crude oil prices, where we are looking at a second weekly decline. Prices have fallen by 4% this week after declining nearly 3.5% in the previous week as well. Well, it has to do with the weak China data. The war premium seems to be coming off as there are no new countries joining into this conflict, and we have seen no crude disruptions happen. The support also comes in because of the dollar decline, and then the markets also are reading it as dovish signals from the US Fed, the Bank of Japan and Bank of England meetings as well, and that also seems to be weighing onto the markets. Same is the case with gold as well. While we are trading near 5-month highs, but this is going to be a first weekly decline in 4 weeks. That gold is also heading into $2,000 per ounce on the higher side, has not held. The markets are seeing support from the decline in US dollar index, but it is all going to be about the US non-farm payroll data that comes in today in the evening.
Okay, yes, so a lot of macro data as well that we are expecting that will decide market moves as well. Thank you so much for joining us, Manisha. But moving on now to some updates from the courts. A 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court has concluded arguments in the electoral bonds case and has reserved its judgment in the matter. The top court also directed the Election Commission to furnish data on donations received by political parties till September 2023. Of course, we'll get more details on this developing case. But the other big story, of course, is what's happening in Delhi. Now, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has announced the closure of all government and private primary schools for the next 2 days as the air quality index worsened in the state. Yesterday, the central government imposed a ban on non-essential construction work in Delhi NCR as part of stage 3 of graded response action plan. Health experts have also raised concerns on a potential rise of severe respiratory problems. 18 out of 37 monitoring stations in Delhi recorded air quality index in the severe category. Okay, all right. So this is something that we see every winter. Hope this time situation improves. But moving on and talking about the Asian markets, let's take a look at them again because they were doing well the first time we checked, and that continues to be the case again. Hang Seng has extended some of those gains. It's up 1.6%. Taiwanese index up 0.5%. And across the Asian markets, there is some green, and the GIFT Nifty is indicating, or at least implying, that the open will be strong above that 100-point mark. And after yesterday's stellar move, there could be some fall-on buying that we are expecting in our own markets today. With that, we'll take your leave on this edition of Power Breakfast. Stay tuned. Bazaar Morning Call comes up next with all the market action. Stay tuned.